Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Sophie, and I'm a member of the Education Department here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Now, we have a very, very fun trip for us today. We are going whale watching. Well, virtually, of course. But before we get to that, I am not alone in the studio today. I am joined by two of my friends. We have Connolly and Cole, and they are controlling all the really cool stuff you see going on behind me. Now, later on, I will be asking for observations, and also if you have questions, you are more than welcome to ask us. So there are a couple of ways for you to get in touch with us right now, and we'll throw that number and email up on the screen. But if you are watching along live with us, it is Thursday, August 24th, and it is about 3 o'clock. And so if you are watching with us from 3 to 3:30, you are more than welcome to text us at 562-286-1838, and they will let me know that we have a question or an observation, and I can go ahead and answer or talk about that. And then if you are watching after the fact, but you still have questions or things you would like to share, please feel free to use our email. It is live@lbaop.org. So again, two ways for you to get in contact with us today if you have observations, questions, or just want to share anything. Okay, so like I mentioned, we are getting ready to go whale watching. Now, here in Southern California, we are really lucky because we are kind of off the highway for a lot of different whale migrations. So we get a whole bunch of different animals that migrate maybe from more colder areas up north down to our coast and even a little further south into Mexico where it might be a little warmer. So we are really lucky that here in Southern California, we have a couple different seasons where we are more likely to see some different species. Now, obviously, these are wild animals, so unfortunately, there is no guarantee that we'll see anything today, but I think we will have some good luck today. I'm hoping for it. Okay, so if any of you have gone whale watching before, you are more than welcome to share maybe some of the things you noticed or maybe some of the things you did to kind of help you prepare to go whale watching. So we are going to go out on a boat. And whenever you're out on a boat or out on the water, it typically gets a little more cold than if you're on land. Now, luckily for us, today in Southern California is a really toasty day, so getting out on the water should feel really good. But if you're going in the wintertime or maybe you're going somewhere colder like Washington, Canada, you may want to take a hat, a jacket with you. And for those of you that are here in Southern California with us, you will probably want things like sunglasses. Maybe you'll want a hat, and you also may want some binoculars as well. And those will help us to spot all the different animals that we are looking for. So, whatever you need to get yourself comfortable to be out in kind of the elements. Yes, we'll be on a boat, but it does get a little more chilly out on the open ocean. So now that we know what we need for ourselves personally before we go whale watching, I want to talk about what we are looking for when we get out there. So, the Pacific Ocean is very vast. It is a huge body of water. And in 30 minutes, we do not have time to go across every single part of the Pacific. So, what are some things we should be looking for when we're going whale watching? Well, luckily for us, whales are mammals, just like us as humans. And that means they can't hold their breath forever, so they do come up to the surface eventually to breathe. And when really big whales come up to the surface and they breathe, they emit what is called a blow. And it almost looks like a little bit of smoke or some mist coming up out of the water. And depending on the whale species, sometimes their blows can go as high as 30 feet in the air. And that gives us a pretty good range at being able to spot them. So that first thing that we are looking for is we are looking for blows from our whales. And again, it almost looks like smoke or mist coming out right at the surface of the water. And that's when they're breathing. Now, the other things that we are looking for that are a little bit easier to spot to the untrained eye are splashes. Now, if we see a lot of splashes, chances are there may be some sort of activity like maybe a whole bunch of dolphins together. They're also really playful, so they tend to splash a lot in the water. Or it could mean there's some other activity going on, like maybe a whale jumping or breaching. Maybe there's a whale feeding at the surface that's causing some commotion, or any other sort of behavior. But splashing is a very, very good indicator. So we have looking for the blows. We also have looking for splashing. Now, the last thing that we are looking for is a whole bunch of diving birds. So if we see a whole bunch of birds diving into the water, it means that they are probably eating some fish. And if those birds are eating fish, there's a good chance that other animals that also feed on those same animals could be nearby too. So we are looking for birds and not just sitting on the surface. We want to see them diving into the water because that means they're feeding and other animals may be nearby if those birds are feeding too. So we are looking for blows from those big whales. We are looking for splashes, maybe from dolphin friends. And we are looking for diving birds because that means there may be some food nearby. Now, I think that Captain Connolly can get us going on out there, and I will tell us how we're going to be looking around the boat as well. So let's go ahead and we can start getting out into the open ocean, start seeing what we can see. And as we do that, the way I'm going to be pointing animals out to you is by using the boat kind of like a clock. So directly in front of us is our 12 o'clock, and then to the right of us will be our 3 o'clock. If it's behind the boat, that's our 6 o'clock because that's on the bottom of the clock. And if it's on the left of our boat, that is our 9 o'clock. So if you hear me referencing those clock terms, it's because that's how we can talk about where the animals are in relation to us on the boat. Now, the animals may also move around as well, so it's really important that we all keep our eyes peeled in different directions to see if we can spot them. Okay, now with that in mind, let me go ahead and grab my sunglasses and let me grab my binoculars and we can start looking for stuff. Now, obviously, we do have some captains on board as well that can help us let us know when we spot something. But I want all of you to be keeping your eyes out as well. Remember, we're looking for those three things that help us know an animal's there. Mm-mm. Oh, Connolly says she sees splashing. Let's go ahead and get a little bit closer and see what we can find. Let's see. Splashing sometimes means animals may be a little bit more playful. And it looks like we have a group of dolphins right here. Now, does anybody know what a group of dolphins is called? Is it a school of dolphins? Is it a gaggle of dolphins? What about a pod? Does pod seem a little more fitting? Well, yeah, you are correct. We see a pod of dolphins right here. Now, what are some things that you notice about them? Is there anything you notice about their behavior? Anything you notice about the color on them? Or maybe just how they're moving through the water? Observations are a very good way for us to start asking questions about things and to be curious about them using our scientist brain. Now, I know that one of the things that I notice when I look at these dolphins is that they are all kind of together. What's really cool about dolphins versus other types of whales that we typically call baleen whales is that dolphins will have teeth. So there are two different types of whales. There's ones that have teeth, like dolphins, sperm whales, orcas, and then there are ones that don't have teeth. Instead, they have baleen, which helps them filter feed. Now, dolphins are a part of that toothed whale category, which means that they do have teeth and also one singular blowhole, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. But a big thing that's different about dolphins and some of those other whales is that dolphins are really, really social creatures. They are just like us as humans, which means you usually see them together in groups. Sometimes you can see them in maybe smaller groups like this. Sometimes you can see them up into the 500s. I've seen them sometimes up there where it seems like 1,000 or so. There's dolphins as far as the eye can see. And usually, what some people have told me about whale watching is that whatever you are able to see, hear, and count in terms of number of dolphins, that usually is representative of about 1/3 of everybody that's with them. So while 1/3 of them may be here on the surface, some may be under the water, some may be maybe a little bit deeper, but usually there's more dolphins than we can even count. Now, these specific dolphins right here, they are a type of dolphin called common dolphins. Now, the reason I can tell they are common dolphins and not a different type of dolphin is because if you look really closely at their sides, you'll notice that the top of them is a little darker and the underside is kind of light. I was checking to see if I have any models with me. I don't think I have a dolphin model. However, you can see the ones over there that they were very much like. On the top, very dark, underneath them, a little bit lighter. And that's known as counter shading, and we can talk about that a little bit more later as well. Oh, perfect. So we get a really good look at that counter shading that these animals have on them. But something else that's really cool that you see them doing right now is a dolphin behavior. Well, not just dolphin behavior, but dolphins tend to do it a lot, and it is a behavior known as porpoising. So you can see that a bunch of these dolphins are actually out of the water right now. And yes, dolphins are kind of playful and energetic and acrobatic, but swimming in and out of the water actually allows them to go a little bit faster. So, whenever animals are moving through the water, they experience something called drag, which means they get a little bit slowed down by moving through that body of water. Now, water has more drag than the air will. So, when dolphins jump out of the air, they're able to move a little more easily when they're in the air. They don't experience as much drag or that resistance. So going in and out of the water in that porpoising motion allows them to go a little more quickly than if they were just swimming through the water the whole time. So I always like to say that if you ever see dolphins or any other animals doing this behavior, just know that they don't do it on accident. They do it on purpose. So that's a really good dad joke, a really good dad joke that I like to talk about with these dolphins as well. So that was a very good introductory pod or good group for us to take a look at. Dolphins are always such a good animal to start the trip off with. But I think with that in mind, we have learned a good amount, and it's time for us to keep going to see what else we can spot out there. Now, common dolphins are kind of common here in Southern California. We get them, well, I don't want to say frequently, but they're usually an animal we can reliably see if we look hard enough. But I wonder what else we'll be spotting today. Hmm. Let's see. Sometimes my binocular skills may not be as good either. It takes skills to be able to use them very well. Let's see. What else can we spot out there? What else can we spot out there? Ooh, we see some birds flying by, and that means, oh my goodness, if we see birds nearby, it means they may be eating. And also, other animals like this humpback whale may also be eating too. Now, a couple of things you see going on right now. One of the things we're able to see is a really nice fluke from those humpback whales. So that means we get a really nice dive from them. But also, we are seeing that blow. So the next time one of the animals is right at the surface, see if you can see that kind of exhale. Right there, there's the blow. So the reason why these larger baleen whales have a bigger blow, or ones that you can see better, is because these animals have two blowholes. So dolphins, orcas, sperm whales, the ones with teeth, they will have one blowhole, but these ones will have two. So you'll notice these baleen whales come up to the surface, they let out a big exhale, they usually take another breath in, and then sometimes they go on a deeper dive. And we know they're going on a deeper dive when they show us their tail or when they fluke like that. But something else that's really cool is we see a lot of feeding activity going on here at the surface too. Now, you may kind of be curious as to like how these animals are eating or what they're eating, but in just a second, I think we'll see a really good look at one of them coming up and opening their mouth again. Perfect. We have it right here. So, like I mentioned, these animals don't have any teeth. Instead, they have these really long fibrous plates called baleen that help them filter feed. So, I like to think of baleen plates almost like the bristles on a toothbrush, or maybe like the bristles on a comb or any type of brush. They help really, really tiny little animals get stuck in there, and so the whale is able to eat. Now, what we see it doing right now is something called lunge feeding. So these animals will come up at the surface with their mouths open, usually break the surface of the water, close their mouths, and then go back down with a mouthful of krill, small fishies, and also water. So sometimes when you see whales, you may not be able to see just that blow right away because it may be their mouth coming up to the surface and eating on top. Now, I actually have a tiny little sample of baleen with me that I can show you as well. So, if you see in my hand, you'll notice those tiny, 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 tiny little things. And those are the baleen. That's what these animals, oh, sorry, not the baleen, the krill. That's what these animals like to eat. Now, if we actually go over to my document camera, we have a luckily we have a portable document camera we can take on the boats with us. But we can see all those tiny little krill right there. Now, depending on the species, these animals will eat different amounts of krill and also small schooling fish. But when it comes to the humpback whale, they can eat about 4,000 pounds of krill per day. So that's 2 tons, about 4,000 pounds of food that these animals are able to eat. Now, the reason why they eat so much food is because these are pretty large animals as well. So humpback whales will get about 52 to 56 feet long, and they can weigh up to 80,000 pounds. So they eat a lot of food, but also it's because they are very big animals. Now, one of the ways that they are able to eat all that is by using these baleen plates right here. So here you are kind of seeing the outside view of the baleen. So this is kind of what it's like on the outside of their mouth. This faces out. And each one of these little lines you see right here is one of those baleen plates. So they have several, if not hundreds, of baleen plates stacked next to each other in their mouth. And then if we flip it over and look at the other side, this is where all the krill will get stuck. So right now as I touch it, it kind of feels like dried pasta, maybe a little bit more flexible, but it really helps all those little small fish and krill get stuck in here. And then what the whale will do is it'll then take its tongue and lick around the inside and get all those krill and fish off of its baleen. Now, let me go ahead and I will stand back in front of the camera with it just so you can see it too. But this is just one small sample of baleen. Depending on the whales, sometimes their baleen plates can be taller than me. But as you can see right here with the humpback, there are all sorts of plates in its mouth. I think for humpbacks, they can have like 150 to maybe 200 in their mouth. So this is just one little example. And then this is from a humpback whale too, which is very neat. So we get to see their actual baleen. Now, humpback whales are very cool because they are very, very acrobatic. Now, oh, I think on cue, we may have one that is jumping and breaching out of the water right now. That is awesome. So, humpbacks are among some of the most acrobatic of whale species, and they are kind of known for that. Now, one of the reasons we can tell it's a humpback is because they are slightly different colors than some other whales. So, depending on the species of whale, they may be named kind of after the color that they show underneath the water. So, for example, a blue whale looks super, super blue right underneath the surface of the water. Gray whales are very, very gray. And humpbacks are kind of blacker color with really white pectoral, fins, flippers right over here. So that's how we can tell it's a humpback because it has the kind of white coloration over here. Now, humpbacks are also really unique because their pectoral flippers can be about a third of their total body length. So, whereas some whales may have shorter ones, like right here, humpbacks will have very long ones. So, that's what allows them to give themselves enough momentum to push themselves out of the water. Now, we as scientists and also just whale enthusiasts don't really know why whales breach, but we do have a couple of ideas. Sometimes we think they may have a lot of energy and they're kind of getting rid of some of that. Sometimes people think it may be to kind of itch or maybe scratch themselves. Sometimes what I've seen is I have seen whales breaching when they are trying to impress other whales or maybe trying to communicate in some sort of way. But sometimes when you go whale watching, because the boat can make a little bit of a noise and noise underwater travels very differently, sometimes what you'll notice is when you start to leave and turn your engine back on, sometimes the whales start to jump after you're leaving and getting ready to head back. And usually it's because they may hear that noise, they're trying to make themselves a little bit bigger and make some commotion so that whatever that big noise is kind of knows they're nearby. But that's a little bit of an insider tip. If you go whale watching and you're on whales and you get ready to turn around, keep your eyes focused on where you saw them because sometimes I've noticed they tend to jump when we start getting ready to head back. Now, also with humpback whales, they are very, very known for their songs. They sing very low notes, sometimes very long notes as well, but they are not only the most acrobatic of whales, they are also some of the most talkative. They are really, really good at singing and communicating with each other. Now, I don't think we have any whale sounds with us, but I always encourage you to maybe look them up or maybe later, if we get really lucky, we may be able to, maybe I can do an impression of one. I'll see if I can work on that in the meantime. But we'll say bye to our humpback friends for now. A really good show from them. And we can see what else is out on the open ocean. Now, the only thing with whale watching is that sometimes, depending on how far out you go, you have to account for that time to get back as well. So we have about 10 minutes left on our whale watch. So hopefully we'll be able to see some more cool stuff while we're out here too. I mean, breaching humpbacks, that's always a good one. It'll have to go. Only up from here. Ooh, a bunch of dorsal fins. That's kind of interesting because most whales that we get in Southern California don't have the largest of dorsal fins. So I wonder what our captain is talking about when she says seeing lots of, oh my goodness. This is a very, very lucky day for us on this whale watch because we have run into a pod of orcas. Now, I know myself, I know lots of other people that I work with. These are some of the animals that we grew up being in love with. These are animals that inspired a lot of us. And also, these are ones that are often very, very, very cool to see out on whale watches. And the reason why is because here in Southern California, we don't really have any resident orcas. There's not really any reason for them to be migrating from like the north to the south, maybe through California specifically. So we're always very lucky because it's random. If we get killer whales or these orcas here in Southern California, it's totally random. Now, if you were to go to other places like maybe Washington, maybe Canada, there are specific populations of these whales that do live there pretty much year round. So if you go to there, you may have a better chance or maybe just like more of a likelihood of seeing them there because they are more local. Whereas whenever we see orcas here in Southern California, it's always a really big deal. People get really excited. And the last time we saw some, I remember there being so many boats out on the water that it really felt like all of us were there to see like these celebrity orcas. Everybody was super excited to see them. Now, what's really awesome about orcas is yes, they are a type of whale, but they also have that one blowhole. They're kind of like a very large dolphin, which are also whales. But because they have some of those characteristics, you will see them traveling in groups together or like a pod. Now, that also adds to the reason why they earn the reputation killer whale. Not only are these animals sometimes kind of ferocious, depending on who you are. If you're a sea lion, if you're a dolphin, you would probably call them ferocious. But with these orcas, one of the reasons why they are such an apex predator is because they always travel together in groups. So, for example, if we think about animals like white sharks, we sometimes think of them as like the top predator. There's not really much else that can eat them. But actually, there have been some documented reports of orcas eating white sharks. Now, sometimes different animals may be a little bit larger than the orcas, but because they work together and because they're super smart, that's what makes them a very powerful team. As an individual, yeah, they're really good hunters and good predators, but you put that together and they're even better when they're all working alongside each other. Now we can see those little teeth that they have right there. They are kind of cone shaped. So some dolphins will have really skinny teeth, and then orcas will have those cone shaped teeth and just a little bit larger as well. Now, something else that is very cool about these orcas is that they are matriarchal. So what that means is in all of their groups and all of their families, they have women as their leaders. So that means the grandmas are the ones that are in charge. The moms are the ones that are in charge. And so I think that's something that's really unique is that sometimes in other areas of the world or in other animal species, you may see more males being at the top or being the ones in the lead. And with orcas, it's these ones that are kind of leading the all the other groups around, or it's the women leading that group of orcas around. So that's something I think is very cool and unique about these species as well. Now, as I mentioned, there are a couple different types of orcas. So here in Southern California, we may not get any that often, and if you go to areas like Washington, you will have some orcas known as the residents, and those ones like to eat salmon up in Washington. Some of the ones that we've gotten here in Southern California are ones that may eat dolphins. Sometimes we get ones that eat seals and sea lions, but not too often. Now, there are other areas where these orcas may hang out a little bit more often, and that's because they may like to follow the migrations of some of those bigger baleen whales. Now, for example, sometimes orcas like to predate on baby gray whales or juvenile gray whales. And that's because when they are little, they are still learning stuff about the world. It is usually the mama whale and her baby whale. And if a whole bunch of orcas come in, usually they'll be able to predate or maybe eat one of those younger ones. So that's something else that those bigger species may have to watch out for is even though orcas may be smaller than them, when all of them are together, that's something that they can definitely achieve is they can eat one of those larger baleen whales if they wanted to. So that's why they have earned themselves the nickname as killer whales. But luckily for us as humans, there have been no documented interactions out in nature of any negative interactions with orcas. There are some different places where you can maybe snorkel or scuba dive with them responsibly. But here in the United States, or we typically have protections around these animals, which means you usually can't be scuba diving or swimming near them. You have to give them a good amount of space. And that also applies when you are on a boat. When you are whale watching, one of the things that we did a lot today was we were very responsible about how close we got to the whale. We also try to be mindful of turning our engine off, making sure if we see whales directly in front of us, we're not just going to go straight through them. So that's something that's important for us to talk about is making sure we are responsibly watching these animals as well. Now, we can go ahead and say bye to our orcas and start heading back to shore. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions about anything, you can let us know either with the text or, like I said, you can email us. But I do want to talk a little bit about how we can better protect these animals. Now, like I mentioned, there are some regulations that help protect these animals in terms of how close we can get to them. I know there's also been different regulations put on if we are hunting these animals, if we are harvesting them, things like that. So that has definitely helped their populations. But also, something that we can be mindful of is what we are doing as humans. So, for example, here in Southern California, we get a lot of boat traffic. And that's because we have the Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles right next to each other. So that means that we have really big boats and really big ships coming in from all over the world here into Southern California. And these are the same areas that we are whale watching on. So some of the things that we do here at the Aquarium of the Pacific are we can take little GPS points of where we see some of these whales when we're out whale watching. And then we can use that to establish hotspots or areas that seem to be popular where the whales may be hanging out. Now, we have in the past been able to use some of that information on a type of whale called the fin whale to actually help adjust to some of the shipping routes and places where those boats are going to get into the ports. Just to make sure that we are doing our best to not accidentally hit any of those animals, to make sure that we're not interfering with their behavior. And that's because we got a lot of whales traveling through Southern California, but also a lot of boat traffic coming in. So that's something that we can do to make sure we are better protecting the animals. Now, other things we can do are something that you've already been doing by hanging out with us today. It's by learning a little bit more about these animals, asking questions if you have any. And something else that's really cool about the digital age that we live in is that you can do a lot of the research yourself. So if there's anything that you're interested in, anything else you would like to learn more about, we have a lot of resources, whether it be our YouTube, whether it be our website, but there's also a lot of other resources, whether it be individuals, maybe places like zoos and aquariums, or maybe even other educational programs that are doing things similar to talk about these different types of animals. So if it's questions, if it's anything else you'd like to know, of course, we are always happy to be a resource, but I also encourage you to do some own exploration of your own. If the whales are something you're interested in, if it's something else, there is lots of information out there that you will be able to find to help further your knowledge so you can learn a little bit more about them. Now, one of the last things you can do to better help the oceans and the animals that live there is you can tell your friends and family about some of the things you learned. If you are really impressed by maybe a whale fact, if there's something really cool that you learned about them that you think is super impressive and want to share with other people, go ahead and do that. Because by you learning a little bit more about them and telling your friends and family about that, then we can have a little bit more of an impact and then a lot more people will want to care and better protect these animals. So that is typically how I end a whale watch. I will talk about things that we can better do to protect these animals, but I also like to give a little bit of a wrap up of the animals that we saw. So we started off our trip today with a group of common dolphins, so that was really cool to see. We saw some humpback whales not only lunge feeding, but we saw them breaching or jumping as well. And then we ended with the rather elusive orca whales. So a very good trip for us here in Southern California. Now, thank you all for joining us. If you do have any more questions or anything else you'd like to share, you know where to reach us. And if not, thank you once again for joining and tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. We'll see you next time.